Hello everyone, welcome back to the tutorial where I break down how I followed the tutorial by Mythical Game Dev on how to make a survival shooter in Unreal Engine 5 using C++ and blueprints. Up next, we are looking at the player heads-up display. I'll be showing you my processes in following the tutorial on this aspect. From this point on, the tutorial was quite straightforward to follow because there was no much differences despite the earlier differences due to the Unreal Engine versions. But anyways, I'm still going to do the breakdown and let's follow along. Looking at the heads-up display, we created a widget blueprint. Let's head over to that. We go to log, UI, and I have the WBP underscore HUD. So you notice the other ones in the folders. I created these ones when I was creating for the other platforms like Android, mobile, and VR. We're going to look at them in later tutorial. So opening the WBP HUD, let's look at the setup. I'm going to dock this and zoom. Okay. This is the layout. We added the necessary elements, the canvas, the image, text, and set them as appropriate. All these parts you can easily follow along in the main tutorial by Mythical Game Dev. So next thing, after creating these, we did bind some of the text, such as these numbers, the clip size, the total ammo, the wave, kills, points. I added the kills because I think it's a fun statistic to keep track of. You can add it to your own as you follow this tutorial as well. Before we look at the binding, let's look at how this widget was connected to the viewport. It was done through C++, so we are going to look at our log shooter character, which is the player character in my case. We head over to the C++ classes. Log, and my log shooter character is in the variant shooter. That's it. Yeah, let's take a look at the header file first. In the header file, we expose the property so we can get our player HUD right here. So this is the reference to the player HUD. On getting this, we head over to the C++ file. We check if the HUD is assigned, if it's defined, after which we assign it to the viewport. So we create the widget and then add it to the viewport and position it correctly. These numbers that we want to update the text, the clip size, ammo, these are variables that we need to update. Some of them are present on the log shooter character. So let's see how the binding is set up essentially. Let's look at the variables, this clip size. So we have the health, the current ammo, and the total ammo, which we can use from the log shooter character to update the heads-up display. Heading back, let's check out the graph of the widget. Here we'll see the binding. We can see the health, which was bound to the health bar. We are getting the updates of the health variable from the log shooter character, as we can see here. By casting to the player character to the log shooter character, we get the health variable and normalize it. The next get current ammo follows a similar structure. We are getting the current ammo variable instead. The total ammo, the same thing. That's it for the bindings. We can see let's examine the variables, how they are updated, especially the current ammo and the total ammo. These variables, they were updated from the shooter weapon class. The shooter weapon class has the clip size and the total ammo, and then feeds the variable on the log shooter character, which in turn updates the HUD. Let's have a look at that. The shooter weapon, so we'll go to weapon, shooter weapon. We've already set our character to the log shooter character. We just update accordingly the current ammo, and we update the total ammo as well. That's when we reload. Let's have a look at the reload as well. The reload was set up completely here also, so let's take a look at that. What happens when the player reloads? The reload was set up. The input was binded correctly right here in the enhanced inputs component. I added the appropriate input for reload, R key on the keyboard and the right click as well. We have the reload. I set it up on the correct input action. Let's quickly take a look at that. Head back to UE, then the first person template, the input, the action. These are the basic inputs that were already set up for us. If we go back to the variant shooter and check the inputs, the actions, I added the reload here, also the interacts later in the tutorial. We also have the shoots. I added it to the input mapping. I created another input mapping for log, and I added this to the controller, to the log shooter controller, so that will be added to the inputs. And let's quickly have a look at the controller. Lock player controller. Now we check out the input mappings. The default input mapping. This is the default, the one that controls the movement and jump. Then the weapons, which came with the variant shooter. Then the IMC lock, which I added when I was adding the reload interact actions. Now that we've had a look at how I set that up, let's go back and see the rest of the implementation of reload. Let's check out the reload method. Here, do the necessary checks if the weapon is equipped, if it's a valid property. We check if there is need to reload. That means if the current ammo, we check if the current ammo is greater than or equal to the equipped and the clip size, then there's no need to reload. Alright. We also check the reload. We reload the weapon appropriately then with this method, reload the weapon that is already on the shooter weapon. We'll play the correct animation montage. Now, the actual reloading, following the tutorial, we did not want it to take place unless the montage finishes playing. So to implement that, we added a dynamic at the top to the get mesh instance. To on montage ended, we added a dynamic that will call undo on montage end. It's going to call this method. Let's look at the implementation of the undo on montage end. Scroll down. Undo on montage end. It checks if the montage that end is the reload montage. It checks if that montage is reload and if it was not interrupted. If it was not interrupted, then it reloads the weapon as appropriate. It sets the total ammo and the correct ammo and it does the necessary calculations. And that is the end of the reload. So the player can reload appropriately. That is the end of this aspect of the tutorial on the player heads-up display setup. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time. Bye bye.